Hi everyone! Welcome to Artsonia's After School Art Club. Today, we have a fun art project from Miss Keriann, an art teacher from Wisconsin. Hope you enjoy the video and don't forget to have your artwork uploaded to your Artsonia gallery.
Show you how to make a castle using some paint chips. Come with me and I'll show you all the steps. Before we begin, we will need to collect our supplies. While you're doing this, also make sure you check in with an adult to make sure it's okay you use what you're taking. The main thing we're going to need is something called a paint chip. Paint chips are paint samples and they come in a lot of different colors. Adults will use them when they are painting their house, so you may already have some at home. They are something that's free to take when you are at Menards, Walmart, or Home Depot. There are a lot of different stores that have them. If you're going to be taking a lot, make sure you ask a store employee to double check. Other supplies we're going to need will include things like glue, something to draw with. I'm going to use a Sharpie marker. I only have black, but if you have different colors, you could use those. You could also use different drawing mediums like crayons, pencils, markers if you don't have a Sharpie to use at home. I'm also going to use scissors. Scissors are something you should also double check with an adult before using. And if you have one, you could also use a hole punch. Hole punches can come in a lot of different shapes. I have the basic kind, but if you have one that punches out stars or a fun shape, you could also use those as well. The last thing we need to collect is something to make our creation on. This will be our background. I am using an old painting. You can also use things like computer paper, newspaper, or even a brown paper bag. My first step of the project is to look through my paint chips. I need to decide what colors I like. I'm going to go with the purple and the gray. I would like to have two towers, so I'm going to cut the gray piece in half, and that will become my two towers. Now I'm going to use the purple as my main wall. I'm going to add some battlements on the top by cutting this zigzag pattern to create them. Now I really like this scrappy piece that I have, so I'm going to put that off to the side and maybe I'll use it later. Next I'm going to start gluing some pieces down. When I'm gluing, I'm going to want to think about how I place everything on my paper. Do I want my towers on top or behind my wall? I'll go ahead and make sure I have everything glued on, and then I'm ready for my next step. As I finish up gluing, I want to make sure I'm pushing on the paint chips so that way they don't start to curl. It's okay if they do though. Next, I'm going to look at my castle, and I want to add a keep right here. I've chosen this blue color paint chip for my keep, and I'm going to go ahead and glue that down. Once again, I'm pushing down on the paint chips to help them not curl. Now I'm going to add a roof to each one of my sections. I'm going to use this green paint chip, and I'm cutting out some basic triangles, and I'm adding these pieces to the top of my towers. This is going to be the roof for each one. I also would like to add one to my keep, so I've chosen a new color and cut out another triangle. I'm going to start to glue these pieces on. Notice that when I'm gluing, I'm making sure that I push down on my paint chips to really hold them in place so they don't curl. Now is for the fun step. We're going to take our drawing utensil and start adding some details to our picture. I am going to add a little window with a flower pot and another window on this side to balance it out. On this one, I think I'm going to add a curtain and curtain rod. You can take this step and become really creative in what you do. I'm going to go ahead and add some shingles to each of my roof sections. You could also add many other things to your castle. I could go into fine detail and add all the individual bricks, more windows, more doors. I could even add some people if I wanted to. I'm adding some different shaped shingles on these roof lines. Next, I'm going to go ahead and add some details in my background. I'll do some basic cloud shapes. During this section of the project, I could really go crazy with my imagination and add colors and a lot of different details in this. I could even mix up the media. If I had colored pencils and crayons, I could go ahead and use both of those things. I only have a black Sharpie marker, so I'm going to go really basic. I've got the basics of my castle done, but I have a lot of scraps and extra paint chips left over, so I'm going to add a little bit more details to my castle. Here I am cutting out a drawbridge or a door, and I'm going to glue that on. Now I'm thinking about all the extra scraps that I have. Instead of throwing them all away, is there a way that I can use them in my project? I like this yellow against the blue of my keep, so I'm going to cut out a couple of windows for them. Windows will be nice basic shapes, and against the blue they'll really pop. They might even look like there's a candle or something glowing in the window. Next, I'm thinking about the leftovers from when I was making the battlement for my wall. I think I'm going to use those because it's a fun shape. I could use them in a lot of different ways. I like the idea of putting them on the sides of my towers, so I'll cut it in half and add one to each side. As you are working, it's okay if you get some pops of inspiration that you want to add to it. I really like the idea of adding some more lines to my drawbridge to make it look more wooden, so I'm going to add those here. I also feel like my castle's missing something off to the sides. So I'm going to look at my scraps or any extra paint chips that I may have and think about what I can do. I think that if I had a castle, I would have a lot of rose bushes. So I'm going to take my green one and cut it in half. That should be about the perfect size for each side of my castle. Next, I'm going to punch some holes all around in my green one. The green will represent the leaves, and I'm going to use another paint chip and have that represent the roses. By taking my green and laying it over the top of this orangish red one, I'm going to create an overlay so that way it looks like a rose bush. Now that I have these pieces ready, I'm going to go ahead and glue them together. I'll glue the green one on top of the orange, and then I'll glue both pieces over the top by my castle. With these hole punched pieces, you can see the glue start to squirt out. You could easily wipe that away with your finger or a piece of paper towel. Now I have all these fun little circles left over from when I was hole punching my rose bushes. You could throw those out, or you can do what I'm going to do, and I'm going to go ahead and glue them onto my castle to add a little bit more design. Thank you for joining me in making a castle out of paint chips. I hope you had a lot of fun, and I'll see you next time. Bye!